Good afternoon, ladies, and welcome back to our summer series, Positive Thinking 101. This is class number 4. If you missed out on the previous classes, it's all good. You can find them on YouTube at youtube.com/chazak. Okay, we are, last week we spoke a little bit about the power of speech, the idea of how dibur, how we speak, the words that we use, how that impacts our reality and how it impacts our world. And today, I want to take it up a notch and talk a little bit about our thought and how thought impacts our reality. Because speech is one thing, and thought is a whole other thing. There's a famous study that was done about almost 10 years ago where they took NBA basketball players and they divided them up into 3 groups. It took 2 teams, separate teams. They were unaware of the study. One team, both teams were divided up into 3 sections. There's one group that did absolutely nothing. Another group would spend an extra, I think typical in an NBA, you're practicing for 6 hours a day. They took one group and they gave them an extra hour of training a day. So we went from 6 hours a day to 7 hours a day. So they added a total of an extra 5 hours a week of training. Okay? The third group, instead of giving them an hour, instead of doing 7 hours of training, they reduced their training from 7 hours to 3.5 hours. They cut it in half. And instead, for 2 hours, they gave them mental exercises. And what were they doing during this time? They would spend time visualizing in their thoughts, taking a basketball shot, dribbling the ball, blocking the ball, just total visualization. Okay, and what they wanted to do is they wanted to see which of these 3 groups would have any change at the end. The group that did nothing, maybe working out, maybe putting an extra hour a week is detrimental, it's bad for you. Maybe doing nothing is just keeping the status quo is better. Or maybe the thought people, because they're doing less exercise, they're spending less time on the court. Maybe that would be more detrimental to their game, and we'd see a decrease in performance, not an increase in performance. So, which of the three do you think performed better, right? The thought group, right? So we're talking about thoughts, not fair, right? So the thought group, right? The thought group did significantly better. Now, which is interesting, right? It's not what I would think. I would think that someone who's putting the actual physical time into the endeavor of being a better, more proficient basketball player would have better results. But that's not what came out. What came out at the end is that the group of people that sat there and actually thought mental exercises about how they could win the game, how they can shoot their shot, how they could, they thought about making sure their elbow is straight and making sure their wrist comes out properly, and they're thinking of every detail of what makes that shot a better shot. The thinking alone saw a 23% increase in their ability to score in the game. That's amazing. Because it's not that's 23% increase. That's a massive performance increase.
You can't practice for that long.
Yeah, it's true. So you can. I'll tell you why. See, this is where it gets kind of interesting and confusing. So this is a conversation which won't be very long. It's very, very deep because it requires a lot of thought, and but it's a little confusing. And let me tell you why it's confusing. Okay. It's confusing because if I was to ask everyone in this room right now to point to yourselves, where would you point to? So most people, when you ask them, they go like this. Right, but is that the right answer?
No, it's not.
What's the right answer? There you go. That's a chachama. Okay? Right? The right answer is this is who you are. When we naturally do this, we're identifying with our bodies. And we naturally say, well, this is who I am. I'm a body. But in reality, you're much more than a body. You're I'm going to say a soul, right? You have a neshama, right? And therefore, the closest thing that you and I can, when we speak about a neshama, is our thoughts, right? The power of choice, right? The decision-making element of that's in our mind is what makes us human. And therefore, the real, most truest expression of what it means to be me is this and not this. So there's a duality. On the one part, there's a part of you that very much strongly identifies with your body. And your body, by the way, is a part of who you are. It's part of your identity. It's not false. It's just not accurate. Because there's another part of who you are, which is up here. Now, there are different kinds of tasks that you do. There are tasks that you do that require a tremendous amount of thought. There are kinds of tasks that require 0 thought. Like, how many of you had to think about walking here today? No, I didn't have to think about it. I knew I was coming, and I just got here. I was like, oh, you have to think about it? Okay, what's that? For most of us, it's just something that we just, we go, we show up. How many people here have to think about breathing? No one's thinking about breathing, it just happens. Right? So there are things about that the body does the best involuntary things. The body works best when it's not thinking. Right? Think about that for a moment, right? Everything that happens in your body is a miracle. There's blood that is circulating right now. Your heart is pumping, Baruch Hashem. Right? Your eyes are taking in the light, whatever little light we have in the basement down here, and it's allowing you to experience the room. Your eardrum is beating because of the vibrations coming out of my mouth and bouncing against the walls, and you're taking that information, the sounds, and turning it into words and sentences, the thoughts and ideas, memories even are coming up as a result of it. You're not thinking about those things. That just happens. Okay? So most of us live in a reality where things just happen for us. And Judaism is all about one thing. It's about taking control away from the body. I have a suspicion that the reason why most meditation begins with a breathing exercise is because what you're doing is you're taking control away from the body. And you're giving it to the mind. I'm going to choose what my breath looks like right now. I'm going to hold and then it's not natural, it's unnatural. And me taking that natural ability away from the body to do its thing is me empowering the thought muscle, the mind, and the neshama to do its thing. Now in Judaism, we talk about this idea of thought and body in a very profound way. So I think next week is Shiv Asar B'Tammuz, right? Next week is the beginning of the 3 weeks. Right? Is it next week or the week after? It's in 2 weeks. Oh yeah, it's 2 weeks. Thanks. Sorry. Mechila. It's in 2 weeks. Shabbat B'Tammuz, the 3 weeks in 2 weeks. Right. Yeah, we just had Rosh Chodesh as this past Shabbat, so I'm a week ahead. So in 2 weeks, we're 2 weeks away from Shabbat B'Tammuz. And the 3 weeks begins this process of mourning. And then at the end of it, at the end of the 3 weeks, we have another fast called Tisha B'Av. Right? There's something unique about that particular fast that's different than other fasts. And it's very similar to Yom Kippur. What's similar to Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur is that number one is we don't wear shoes on that day, right? No leather shoes on Tisha B'Av. Why don't we wear leather shoes on Tisha B'Av? Does it have to do anything with comfort? Because I could wear a nice pair of shoes that are very comfortable, that are made of plastic. All shoes that are plastic, no one's making leather anymore. And maybe I shouldn't wear that shoe. It's too comfortable. Maybe it used to be that leather shoes were more comfortable, and that's why I can't wear leather shoes. But that's not the case. Right? It has nothing to do with leather. It has nothing to do with comfort. The reason why you can't wear leather on Tisha B'Av is because of the following. Okay? Leather, it comes from what? Animal. It's animal husk. And what you do is you take the animal husk and you clothe your feet with it. And that allows you to go around and traverse the earth, traverse the planet. It allows you to go ahead and explore the world around you. Now, on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, you're not wearing leather because we want to remind you that you are disconnected from your animal self. And therefore, no leather on that day because I want to remind you leather comes from an animal. No leather because you are not an animal, the body. Here's something more. Now, it's interesting. Ready? In the morning, when you wake up, you have something called the barachot, the blessings, the morning blessings. There's one blessing in the morning. All of those blessings, by the way, represent a different part of getting up. Opening your eyes, having your thoughts, being able to put on your belt, your pants, being appreciating the things that you have, and so on and so forth. And there's one particular bracha in the morning that we recite that represents putting on shoes. And it's not recited on this day. It's not recited on Tisha B'Av because you don't wear shoes. So which bracha is it? Sha'asa vikol sarki. Now, how would you translate those words? Bless you, the Lord. Thank you for giving me all of my needs. Right? Now, maybe you could explain this better because you're ladies and shoes make more of an impact in your world than it does in my world. But what does that have to do with all my needs? What does the blessing of, giving me all of my needs have to do with me putting on shoes? And the answer that the Mekubalim give, the Kabbalists give, is that shoes, Na'al, is always a metaphor for the body being a shoe for the soul. Maybe this is why the bottom of your shoe is called a Ooh, so weird. Why is the bottom of your shoe called the sole? It's spelled differently, but it sounds the same, right? And therefore, the shoe is the clothing of the foot, leather. Okay, in the same way that the body is the shoe for the soul. Okay, as a matter of fact, if you want to get very specific, the Mekubalim tell us that the part of your neshama that's in your body is the toe. Your soul's toe is the only thing that fills your body. It's the smallest part of your soul, not the fullness of your soul, but the fullness of your neshama is still in the world of spirituality, not even here. The smallest aspect of what you are, you truly are, the truest expression of what your essence and your being is in a spiritual plane and not in a physical plane. And the smallest part of that neshama is what animates this physical part of who you are. And therefore, during the 3 weeks, Tisha B'Av, all the way up until Yom Kippur, is the time where we start thinking a little bit about us dislodging from our animal selves and working towards a heightened spiritual self. Now, all this is happening in the mind, right? Because if I just allowed myself to be me on its own, what would I be? I spoke about this last night to the singles. It's worth mentioning here as well. The default setting, and I'm happy for you to argue with me if you disagree. Don't accept anything that I say. I want you to challenge me. You'll lose at the end. I'm not sure you'll lose at the end, but I'm happy to be challenged. The default setting that we are all set on is me. I come first. I'm always thinking about me first. That is the natural default setting of every single human. We were born that way. Those of you that have children know, child's me. And as we become adults, you think that child part of you just disappeared. The answer is it does not. Okay, and that most of the challenges that we work through in our adult life is learning to realize I need to let go. It's not just about me. It's about the people around me also. It's not just about my wants and not about my needs. It's about being mindful about the wants and the needs of the others as well. And I need to create a space for the others by letting go a little bit of me. Okay? Now, this is why, in this week's Parshat Chukat, and I'm not speaking about the Parshat, we're going to get to this in a minute, this is my very long introduction, is that it says, Zot Chukat HaTorah. This is the chok of the Torah. Now, the word chok, what does that mean? Chok is a law that cannot be understood. It's beyond human logic, right? These are laws that are unexplainable in human logic, okay? And therefore, what the Chachamim point out is that the reason why it says Zot Chukat Torah is to tell you that if you think you understand any one of the mitzvot, you're a fool. None of it makes any sense. And the example I gave is, do you think that honoring and revering your parents is intuitive, or is it beyond human logic? So the natural response would be, of course it's intuitive. How could you not have appreciation for your parents? But my question is, well, how far does that appreciation actually go? What happens to a parent that abandons a child? Is there still an aspect of honor and reverence? What happens to a child who is given up for adoption and later finds their parents? Does that child still have an obligation to give them reverence and honor? Right? What happens when a parent is abusive? Where are the parameters? So it's interesting that the laws of Kibbud Av V'Em were given to whom? To the Jews of the Midbar. Now, a parent, we should have a kakar tatov for the simplest reason. Why? Because they cared for us. They gave us food, they gave us clothing and shelter. But the parents of the Midbar did not do that for their children. What you talking about, Rabbi? Well, I'll remind you, ready? There was man. No mom made any favorite dish. She didn't have to cook for 40 years, right? There was no issue of clothing. The clothing was taken care of because of the Ananei Kavod. And you had Ananei Kavod to take care of their living. It was all taken care of. The laws of Kibbud Av V'Em were given specifically to a generation that had nothing to impart to their children. To remind us that irrespective of what our parents do or do not do, there's still something called Kibbud Av V'Em. And that's not logical. Right? So you think, I understand it, in reality, you don't get it. Find the humility to recognize you don't fully understand it. And ultimately, I do what I do because I believe it's true. Now, let's go back to thoughts for a moment, okay? Well, who's responsible for your happiness? You are. Okay, well, what are you doing about it? Well, I think about it here and there. I came to the class, Rabbi, I'm doing really good, right? Well, what are we doing to improve our happiness? What are we doing to improve our reality? Because if you're doing nothing and you expect any results, I have bad news for you. You're gonna become depressed, God forbid, because it doesn't work like that, right? All greatness, all good comes from effort. It comes from choice. It comes from change. It comes from some type of behavior that is coming from you and not from someone else. It doesn't work like that. The only way this works is if you're able to put in the effort to want to do something different with your reality. And therefore, look at the source sheet I gave you. The first source is from a Gemara in Yoma, and the Gemara says that sinful thoughts are worse than sin itself. Is that true? Do you really believe that sinful thoughts are worse than sin itself? Well, sometimes just like you're caught in the moment, you know. Don't we? Yeah, we do. This is true. We do. But the question is, well, what do you think? Are thoughts worse than actions? They definitely lead to actions, but that's not what the Gemara says. The Gemara says the thought itself is worse than the action itself. Yeah, now that's just an interesting thing. Like, what do you mean? Like, I think of like.
Because it's the preamble to the
Can you control what you're thinking about? If I ask you right now to stop thinking about white elephants with pink bows, what happens immediately? It's right there. Stop. How did you get in my mind? So the answer is you can actually control your thoughts. You can. As a matter of fact, when I remember very vividly when my boys become bar mitzvah, I have the talk with them. You know the talk. And one of the things I tell them is like, you know, you're going to go out into the world and you're going to see all kinds of things. And you're going to see some beautiful women, right? And some of these women may be dressed in a way that you find attractive, right? But you're entitled to appreciate attractiveness. There's nothing wrong with that, right? At first glance is free, but what you do with it afterwards, that's all you. You're in control of what happens next, right? Don't think that the circumstance forces a thought. It doesn't work like that. The moment that you're in a situation, that's you. You can't control that. Beyond that, you can respond, yeah.
So, isn't there that side of the person, I don't know, not the evil side, I don't want to call it the evil side, but the side of the person that has, like, negativity, I don't know, like a side of the person that,
Yeah.
you
There are
know,
negative
you have to
thoughts.
fight it
Correct.
off.
Yes.
You have to
Yes.
fight it
Yes.
off, right? And isn't that the line? In other words, like, you're fighting it off. It's in your mind, but
Yeah.
you still have to fight it off.
Correct.
And
So now there's a difference between, there are different kinds of thoughts, so it's not fair. Like, what do you mean, Rabbi? What kind of thought are you talking about? There are the thoughts that like pop into your mind, that like that pink elephant, or that white elephant with pink bows, right? That's one kind of thought. That's not the same kind of thought as you having a persistent thought, or you having an imagination of something, imagining something. This often happens, at least for me, in my marriage. And you know, your spouse does something or doesn't do something, and you start thinking, like, why did they or did they do that? And you start coming up with all kinds of reasons, and like they're really bad reasons. Like, well, she's not thoughtful. She's just like, you know, like just completely, you know, living in her own reality. You know, like why isn't she respecting me properly? Like all the things that start going in your head, and each one of those reasons are probably false. And yet you buy into one of them because you allow your imagination to kind of fill in the gaps, and that is where we get in trouble. This is why we have another mitzvah called dan lekav zchut, to give a person the benefit of the doubt. And I try to live my life that way, and I'm so much happier because why should I create false negative feelings towards somebody? I'm just going to give people the benefit of the doubt, especially the people closest to me. Give them. I'm not saying be blind. I'm not saying ignore. But if you're uncertain, just, you know what, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt until I know with certainty. And then afterwards, if I have a real reason to be upset or to be disappointed, I can express it later. But I'm not going to make assumptions. We know what happens when you assume, right? Okay. So the Gemara in Yoma says sinful thoughts are worse than sin itself. Let's see what the Gemara in Kedushin. This is a machloket. The Gemara in Kedushin says as follows. He says, but the Holy One, blessed be He, does not link an evil thought to an action, as it states, if I had regarded iniquity in my heart, the Lord would not hear. That's a quote from Psalms, right? Avon im ra'iti b'libi lo yishma Hashem. David Melech is saying that if I had a negative thought, Hashem wouldn't hear it. But how do I realize the meaning of the verse? Behold, hineni mevi al ha'am hazeh ra'a pri hamachshavotam. I will bring upon these people evil, even the fruit of their thoughts. That's in Jeremiah. In the case of an evil thought that produces fruit, leads to an action, the Holy One Blessed be He links it to the action, and the one is punished for the thought as well. If it is a thought that does not produce fruit, the Holy One Blessed be He does not link it to action. So here you have a machloket, two different opinions. Okay, it's a little bit like we're getting a little Talmudic here. Two thoughts. One is that, you know what? That the thought itself is, like you were saying, leads to the action, therefore the sin is the thought, not the action. And therefore the thought is worse than the action. But the Gemara in Kiddushin is making a distinction that no, it's not any kind of thought. The thought, when you take that thought and you pull on that thread, that negative thought, and you pull on that thread, and you make that your reality, and that leads to sin, that's the thought that God is punishing that's worse than action.
Oh, right, that's good.
Okay? So we're making that distinction. So you could have a situation where someone sees something, okay, and he has a negative or very imaginative, colorful thought, and he could just have that thought and say, no, that's not me, and walk away and ignore it, or they could indulge in the thought. And if that thought leads to sin, that thought is worse than the action. That is the cause of the action itself. It's when people hold on to these ideas in their head and they allow it to fester inside of them. That's how the thought becomes an action. And it's those kinds of thoughts that actually lead to sin, and it's those kinds of thoughts that are negative and destructive. Okay? You and I are in control of our thoughts. Just because a thought pops in, it's negative. Or even if it's too positive, if you're being overly optimistic, you're giving too much of the benefit of the doubt. Because I've seen situations where people are overly optimistic and they get hurt because they're too faithful, they're too hopeful about the situation. That's also bad. Our job is to find balance in our lives. And the way that we find balance is by living a life of truth. I can't react to my scenario until I know the facts. And once I have the facts, then I'll determine what my reaction is going to be. But I don't want to be someone who's triggered emotionally and always emotional. What am I doing? I'm building my animal, my body's muscle to responding emotionally. And what you want to be working on is building your soul's muscle to respond cerebrally, intellectually. Well, how do you do that? Well, who's in control of your thoughts? If it's just my reality, I just am always triggered and therefore I'm responding, I'm just wired, and therefore everything comes out of my mouth, whatever feels like it, or I'm someone who's proactively working on controlling my thoughts, working on clarifying who I want to be, and not allowing negative thoughts or false thoughts to enter my head. That's the kind of person I want to be. And this is what Rabbeinu Bachya says in number 3. He says he's going to break this down to 4 different categories. Okay, I apologize for this being so detailed, but this is important. And this is definitely one of those things you want to review later. So he says as follows. He says, thought versus action. He says, consider the mind as our most pristine, unspoiled space. Tainting it with negative thoughts can be viewed even more damaging than physical wrongdoings. It underscores the significance of mental integrity. So he's talking about this Gemara before. So on the one hand, you have a thought versus action. The thought is the holy of holies, the inner chamber of our reality, right? That is the most kadosh place you could possibly imagine. How are we protecting it? How are you infusing it with the ability of ensuring that it is viewed with a tremendous amount of sanctity? Then he says persistent thoughts. Okay, so you have thought, then you have these persistent thoughts. It's one thing to make a mistake once or twice, but it's far more challenging to break a cycle of recurrent negative thoughts. Like the earworm of a song that won't fade. Repetitive, harmful thoughts can be a tough habit to kick. So you have a repetitive thoughts. Now, it's like kind of like a really annoying song that you just want to get out of your head and doesn't want to leave, right? So you could learn to control that. You could learn to shut things down. I have a 7-year-old, and she's having a hard time sleeping at night. She's like, I can't sleep, Abba. I have all these thoughts in my head. I'm like, she's very smart, and so she has some really cool thoughts. But I tell her, I'm like, you could actually clear your thoughts. You could clear your mind. I'm like, imagine an eraser board and put all those thoughts on the board, and I want you to wipe it away with an eraser board. I want you to wipe it away. I want you to imagine it all going away, right? And it gives her that power of recognizing that I'm not a slave to my thoughts. I'm not a prisoner to my thoughts. I can free myself from my thoughts. You don't have to be someone that is directed and motivated by all those kinds of thinking. Yeah.
What about dreams?
What about dreams?
You dream with your thoughts, but you're not in control.
Yeah, it's interesting. As a child, there's actually a state of dreaming where you could actually hijack and control the dream.
Yes.
I would often do that. Like all my dreams were like I would hijack all my dreams. I'd have an awareness that I'm dreaming in my dream, and then I'd be like, "This is so much. I can do whatever I want now." And I just like have my imagination kind of fill my dream to do whatever I want to do. So you can learn to actually expand your consciousness into different kinds of dreams. And different people sleep differently. So dream states are right. You don't have control, but I'll tell you what you have control over. You have control over how you allow the dream to impact you when you wake up. Right? I might not have the ability to control what's happening in my dream always, but I certainly, which by the way you can learn to, but certainly you can choose how you're going to respond to the dream. This is why it's so important to find someone who's going to, interpret your dream most positively. We're on the second page, number 3, on top. And he says as follows, Rabbi Nebachia, he says, premeditation's weight. The Gemara might be stressing the seriousness of planning a misdeed. When someone intentionally plots wrongdoing, they may resort to extreme measures to see it through, revealing the depth of their commitment to that course. God forbid, if you know chas v'shalom, someone who's having really negative thoughts, right? And they're thinking of hurting themselves. What is the telltale that it's really bad? When they actually figure it out exactly what they're going to do. If they tell you they thought of how they're going to see this thing through, and they could walk you through all the points, that's the worst possible stage to be in. Right? It's, God forbid, the worst possible state to be in. So it's one thing to have an imaginary thought. It's a whole other thing to use that imagination to plot through all kinds of negativity, and that's the next that's the next stage of Rabbi Nebachia's scale of different kinds of thinking that leads to action. Then he says lingering thought versus decisive action. He says the Ramban posits that the Gemara could be emphasizing the aftermath of a sin, where residual thoughts persist. It's crucial to distinguish between fleeting sinful temptations and concrete resolutions to act. Ramban suggests that transient thoughts shouldn't warrant severe consequences, given their uncontrollable and often fleeting nature. Yet, I'd argue for the role of proactive thinking. In essence, we possess the ability to cultivate an environment of fostering virtuous thoughts. And there isn't an inherent responsibility in making or not making that choice. Ultimately, you're going to choose about your thoughts. You are in control of your thoughts, just like you can control your breathing. By the way, I'm not sure if you've done any meditating, but part of meditating, I learned how to control my heartbeat. You could slow down your heartbeat. You could speed it up by just thinking about it. Right? You could actually learn to block out sound without putting your fingers in your ear, depending on how much of thinking you're actually used to. But all of that requires a discipline on your part. But don't think, God forbid, that you're a prisoner to your thoughts. You're not. I want to empower you to remind you that you can choose to stop thinking, or use the eraser board analogy. Yes?
How would you explain the thoughts that are coming through and the you that is hearing those thoughts? The true you is the one that's hearing those ridiculous things coming. Is that the way to separate?
The true you is the one whose thoughts are allowing you to be the best version of yourself. If you're having thoughts that do not express greatness in thought and action, that's not who you are. The truest part of who you are is a neshama. The neshama wants you to be great. The neshama understands that in order to be great, you got to put in effort and work. Okay? If you're making choices, you're having thoughts that don't lead to effort, work, and growth, that's not who you are. Happiness, true happiness, is an expression of you living a life where you are aligned with your tafkid, your mission here. The happiest moments of our lives when we know we were doing exactly what we were meant to be doing at that particular time. Don't confuse pleasure and happiness. They're not the same. Happiness is knowing that my soul is in the place where it is doing what it is here to do. Yeah.
Did you say you can control your heartbeat?
Yeah.
Because, like I get some high anxiety. How do you control your heartbeat?
Wrong class, but I'm happy to. That's a whole other. A lot of it is the thinking. If you're someone that has, it's mind over matter, they say. And if you don't mind, don't matter now. Anyway, so you have it's really about your thinking. It's about controlling your thoughts. And it's something that I spent years on, working on, trying to be someone who directs his thoughts and not allow the thoughts to direct me. Yeah, what do you want to say?
Breathing is helpful.
You can control breathing also. Yeah, we spoke.
That is helpful.
Yeah, that heart's also, it's part of it, but it's all part of it. But I'm saying you can do it all in your mind. There's what's his name? Christian Bale. I don't know if you know he's some guysh actor. Anyway, so he can think and cause himself to sweat on demand. So in some of the roles where you're seeing him sweating, that's him choosing to perspire at that moment. That's a whole other madriga. I can't do that yet. Right? But I'm saying that's how far thinking can go. You could choose to think about sweating right now. And you could choose to not to sweat in a situation which requires sweating. You could choose to cool yourself down. Yes?
Something like that, I would imagine that he would be thinking about something else that makes him sweat.
You're asking me what he's doing to get there. I don't know.
No, but I mean, that's
Yeah, it could be. It's irrelevant how he's doing it. The point that I'm making is that the thought is what's controlling the action. That's the point that I want to leave you with. Yeah. That's yes.
Your mind is stronger than your body, so your
The mind is that is the core of what I want. That's what I want. I just want to leave. I want to leave with that idea. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming today. That's it. Good. Yes. Yeah. No. I was joking around. Yeah.
I eat the rice, nothing happens.
Nothing. It's been 2 weeks. Nothing happened to your rice.
Nothing happens.
Nothing. It's still fresh. So you have to wait. You have to wait more. Wait. Don't throw it out yet.
It's 2 weeks now.
Okay.
No any.
Nothing happened.
Nothing.
Okay. Then wait another week. Wait another week. One more week. Yeah. Correct. Viktor Frankl does speak about that idea 100%, and we're going to do that. Yes, there are several places. I have a whole bunch of interesting quotes for you. We're going to come back to that. Let's just keep going. I want to finish the sheet. We're almost done. Let's keep going. Okay, the Zohar says, okay, there are 4 spiritual dimensions: Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiyah. Right? Asiyah is the world that you and I are living in right now. And everything a person does in life is reflected in these spiritual dimensions. Atzilut, number 1, emanation. That is the highest of these dimensions on a spiritual plane. That is where everything is happening. Right? A person's soul descends to our world from the dimension of Atzilut. It repents in the realm where the divine light and energy is undiluted, close to their source. Everything that you and I do at the end goes up and down. Okay? So my soul its toe is in here, so to speak, but its essence is in the world above. Remember how we spoke about trees and humans being opposites? It says, Ki Adam etz pri hasadeh, man is like the tree of the field. And we said that human beings and trees are opposites. A tree, right, its branches are lifting upwards, right, into the heavens. And where is its source? It's the roots underground. It's unseen. A human being is the mere opposite. Your roots are where? In heaven, in the world of Atzilut. And its arms are branching down towards you down here. Mere opposites. Source is unseen, and they're both stretching to different dimensions and different directions. Okay, and therefore there's a very deep correlation between people and trees. And I mentioned to you in the same way that trees have seasons, people have seasons. There are times in the year where we're filled with fruits, and we have our leaves out, and we're feeling great, and there are times where they're gone, and that's okay. We push through it because we know that we have seasons like the trees do. Okay, so that's Atzilut. Then you have Bria. That's the dimension of creation. A person's thoughts are rooted here. Bria, which means creation. That is where your thoughts are in the spiritual plane of things. Yetzirah, right? Formation. Human speech is rooted there. Then Asiyah, that's the dimension that you are in right here. That is a person's physical and active activities are rooted here. Everything that exists in the world has a parallel in each of the 4 dimensions. Everything, which is why, by the way, number 6, Sof Maaseh Machshavat Tchila. The end of a thought is the beginning of an action. Right? We say that. We say this in the Chadodi on Friday night. Sof Maaseh Machshavat Tchila. The end of a thought is the beginning of an action, which means sometimes you could see an action and you can know what the person was thinking. Right? Sof Maaseh Machshavat Tchila. Everything is happening on this higher, lower realm, and it's all coming from a place of thought, not just action, but understand that the action itself first emanates from a place of thought. Look at number 7. Okay, this is Mishlei. King Solomon says, many designs are in the mind, Rabot machshavot v'levi ish, but etzat Hashem takum. Right? At the end, God's plan is going to come. We have all kinds of thoughts running through our head. But God has a plan. Hopefully, you and I are making choices that allow us to be in sync with God's plan. Mishnah Makot, Gemara Makot, says as follows. I love this Gemara. Okay? We're quoting all the different rabbis in the bold. Rabbi Bar Yochana says, Rav Huna says, and some say it's Saint Rav Huna. Rabbi Elazar said from the Torah, and from the prophets, and from the writing, one learns that along the path a person wishes to proceed, one leads and assists him. The Aramaic says, "B'derech sh'adam rotzeh lelech ba molichin oto." The path that you take is the one that you will be led on. The path that you choose to be on is the one that you'll be led on. What does that really mean?
If you want to do good, you'll do good.
That's right. So you are exactly where you want to be, for better or for worse, which means you can change the path that you're on. But in order for you to do there, what has to happen? A thought has to happen first. Where do you want to go? What do you want to be? Where do you want to go? What do you want to look like? Who do you want to, I tell my singles, it's not enough for you to have on paper what kind of person you want to marry. The real thought exercise is, who do you want to be? First envision yourself, and then ask yourself the following question. I did this. Would that girl want to marry you? And the answer for that was no. And I said to myself, well, if that's the kind of girl I want, and then I got to become that guy, so then what do I got to do? And then I started writing out all the things I needed to do, and then, thank God, I found her. Okay? She had no choice at the end of it, but, I found her, and I sealed the deal. It's been, this September, God willing, 26 years. Yeah, thank God. What's that? Amen. Does that mean 120 years of life or 120 years of married life? There's a difference. I get more with the married life. Anyway, fine. Okay. So what the Gemara is saying that you and the path that you're on is an expression of your thoughts. That means choice. That's where you want to go. Okay, I'll get you there. This is the same idea we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, the idea of en davar omed lefnei haratzon, nothing stands in the way of the will, the secret. What you will, be careful, better for worse, you'll get it. So make sure you're very clear about what you want in this world, because if it's not clear about the things that you want, you know what ends up happening? Mazal takes over. Oh, mazal. Mazal could be a good thing or a bad thing, right? But you have the power of being ma'ale min hateva. You have the power of being beyond mazalot, bigger than your mazal. And the way you and I break out of our mazalot is by choosing to be something more. B'derech sh'adam rotzeh lelech ba molichin oto. We help him get there. Choose where you want to go. Maharsha on this Gemara explains, right, that who are the ones leading him? It's a good question. With every word, thought, and deed, this is kind of scary. A person creates a malach, an angel. That's a spiritual force. That is either good or bad, God forbid. That is why the Gemara tells us that a person is led in the way he wants to go. It means that those angels a person created by his desires and intentions are the forces that led him in the direction that he has chosen. Your choices create realities. The reality forces your mitziyut, the reality that you're in. All right? So you can choose what kind of malachim you want to create. I want to create malachim that are positive. And therefore, I need to be the one that's controlled my positive thinking. I need to decide that even if I have negative thoughts, nope, I'm not thinking negatively today. I'm looking in the mirror every single day and say, I want to be positive. I have every reason, every one of us has a reason to be upset about something. Everyone here has a reason to be negative about someone or something. I choose to let go. I choose to let go. I don't want that. I don't want to bring that inside of me. I don't want to bring that negativity into I don't care. Like you do you. You want to be crazy. You want to be negative. That's you. I don't want to be that negative person. I want to be more. And if I choose to live a life of simcha, you know what happens? That's the world God creates for me. Right? We say as follows. Da. This is Gemara it's a Gemara. It's a Pirkei Avot. Da mala mala mimcha. Right? Mishnah says, know that which comes from above you. Which sounds like it's saying, no, there's a God above you and you won't do sin. But that's not what the Mishnah is really saying. Da malamala mimcha, read it differently. Da malamala, know that everything that comes from above, mimcha, is from you. Everything that comes down to this world is mimcha, is from you. Shoot, now, some things I can't control. You're in a relationship, you're people, they make choices also. And sometimes they make bad choices, and those bad choices impact me. So what do? I choose how I'm going to respond. Do I let that person get to me? Do I let that person in? Do I give them the key to my heart? Or am I in control of my thought, my feeling, my action? It's up to you. You choose. The positive thinking requires action. That action can be yoga. That definitely works. It's definitely good to breathe and get out, But ultimately,
isn't yoga like a Hindu thing, and aren't all poses a pose to a certain deity?
there's actually a book that I saw that all the poses are one of the letters of the alphabet. All the alphabet are different poses. Yeah, you see, there is definitely wisdom that was sent to the East, and we have no problem with the wisdom of the East. We have a problem when you allocate the refu'ah to their deities, but ultimately the actions, the movements are all fine. It's exercise. I just think of it as exercise. Exercise is exercise. I know if I exercise for the next 3 weeks, I'm going to have positive results. Right? I know that if I walk every day for 45 minutes, I'll feel better at the end of the week. Right? So that's fine. Like you could do.
This is yoga. It's different.
Oh.
You're posing.
Yeah, I'm saying yoga is.
It's a Hebrew thing. It's yoga.
I'm saying that there is a yoga. There is some source for yoga in Judaism.
So there should be a Hebrew yoga rather than.
The reason why so many Jews are in yoga is because there's some kind of spiritual connection that we have to it, and
it could be a good spiritual connection.
it could be very. And you choose. That's my point. Like you could go to a yoga class and walk away spiritually infused Jewishly from it, as long as you make those associations. Don't allow your outside environment to dictate your, what your spirituality looks like. You decide what it looks like.
Right.
Anyway, okay, so I want to end with the following. It says, look at number 10. Okay, how can we master the thoughts that stream through our consciousness? Right? That the thoughts of batal umuvutal. Sorry. Right? Null and void. Right? How do we get that? How do we get to a place where we can nullify and void our things? So replace with positive thoughts. I am succeeding, or I can do it. Things will get better. Positive thoughts should never contain a reference to any of our difficulties or shortcomings, because our brain will return focusing on those problems and will not need to concentrate on the positive. The way in which we move beyond our negative thoughts is by replacing negativity with positivity. That's it. You think you can't? I can't do. Yes, you can. I can do this. There's nothing you can't do. There's nothing you can't accomplish. There's nothing that you can't achieve. When you put your mind to it, what we're saying Jewishly, spiritually, that becomes your reality. So start reimagining again and don't give up hope. To give up hope is not to be Jewish. It says that the Avot were in Mitzrayim. Miriam was born 96 years into the slavery of Egypt. Okay? 2 generations almost of Jews born in slavery. The parents called her Mariam, bitter waters, because of the pain they were going through. Right? Not a flattering name. Okay? But somehow Miriam, who was the essence and the symbol of their bitterness, became the symbol of their greatest hope. Amram and Yocheved got divorced. Right? Moshe's parents got divorced. You may or may not know that. Why? What?
She got them together.
Miriam did, but why they get divorced? Is what's the point of having children? It's over. Judaism, over. Whatever Abraham was promised, it's not happening. The suffering in Mitzrayim is so bad, we are divorcing. And he got divorced, and every single man divorced their wives in Egypt. They didn't want to have children anymore. Just end the Judaism. That's how bad it was. Miriam comes along and says, Abba, Ima, what you did is worse. You're worse than Paro. You're worse than Hitler. He says, well, why are you saying that? Because your decree not only impacts the boys, but about all the girls. Girls represent hope. The word zot, right? Zot chukat Torah. Zot, by the way, is in the feminine. Pasuk should say zeh chukat Torah. It says zot. Why? Because in order for you to be able to understand the Torah, you got to become a bit more feminine to receive. Open your hands, palm up. If you're going to come in taking and fighting, you're not going to go anywhere. Zot chukat, the way we receive, the way we understand chukim, is by letting go and letting God. That's what it is. The way you and I control our thoughts is by choosing to say, I'm not going to be that person that allows the negative thoughts in my head, and instead I'm going to replace everything negative with something positive. I want to read some quotes, and we'll take questions at the end of it, okay? Ready? Okay, this is Napoleon Hill. He says, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. That's right. We have another one over here. Change your thoughts, and you change your world. Ready? Marcus Aurelius. He says that, well, you don't have it. I have it here, and if you want it, I'm happy to give it to you. I didn't have time to print it for everybody. He says as follows, the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. Again, that's the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. Buddha, this is for the mind is everything. What you think, you become. It's actually from Mishlei. It's the same thing. A man thinks in his heart, so he is. Okay, Winston Churchill. A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. Right? Helen Keller. Keep your face to the sunshine, and you cannot see a shadow. We'll do it Oprah. Ready? Oprah Winfrey. For the ladies. Okay? The greatest discovery of all time is that a person can change his future by merely changing his attitude. Okay? This is one for my daughter, Dr. Seuss. You're off to great places. Today is your day. Your mountain is waiting. So get on your way. William James. The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. Okay? Zig Ziglar. Positive thinking will let you do everything better than negative thinking will. And last but not least, we'll end with the Dalai Lama, because Lama Lo. Just one small positive thought in the morning can change your whole day. That's up to you. You choose. You choose. One thing, one thought, one action. It's all interconnected. May Hashem bless you with the ability of controlling your thoughts, of recognizing that you're not a slave to your thoughts, you're not a prisoner to your thoughts, but really, it's all you. Be the best you can be. Have a great day, everybody. Bezrat Hashem. We'll see you next week.